What's good, guys? Welcome to my Snacks 123 on Rumble, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Eric Broadus YouTube. I say again, Snacks 123 on Rumble and Eric Broadus YouTube. Well, let's go, guys. I guess it's coming out, no secret now. This right here is breaking news. The U.S. captures Maduro and his wife. And I guess this is what we know so far, according to some news outlets. Now, um tonight's live stream is about confirmed breaking news. Major outlets are reporting that Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife were captured by US forces after a military operation early today. In the stream, I seek to present the verified facts so far, analyze what's been reporting, discuss global responses, and look at the potential implications. Let's separate confirmed information from speculation. All right, now, what's been reported so far? Okay. Trump's press statements on the operation and Reuters confirmation of capture and reports of transport to the U.S. and legal charges. Now, as far as his press statements, that right there has been caught by CBS News, and obviously you have Reuters, which confirms the capture earlier this morning by U.S. forces, and France 24 is another source. Okay, now let's get into how and why this happened. Okay. Um, basically, President Trump um, has been talking about going after Nicholas or President Maduro, because he believes that Venezuela is and was responsible for some of the biggest drug trafficking into the United States. Now, obviously, some might say, "Well, wait a minute, isn't doesn't Mexico in the drug cartels in Mexico bring more drugs into the country across the borders?" But I don't know exactly what um, intel that he has, on Venezuela. Now, obviously, we understand that some of and I hope this is not this will be YouTube friendly, but some of the drugs that were been pushed in, obviously, um, cocaine. They believe that Venezuela is responsible partially for the methamphetamine, and other drug epidemics. And so, if you want a little background history on this, if you want to go back, actually, former President Biden had put a $25 million bounty on President Maduro, what I'm saying, his head, for the capture, what I'm saying, of this guy. But what happened is that the United States under the Democrat leadership, they never acted on it. So Trump, went ahead. Obviously he's with under the Republican Party, which is neither here nor there. But he went ahead, what I'm saying, and he acted on it. You see what I'm saying? And so he carried it out. You know, and I always said I made a video earlier this year, and I called it Trump versus Venezuela, but and I questioned and I asked people to question what is the reasons for the U.S. all of a sudden wanting to go into Venezuela, as many of you know that the United States for many years considered you know Latin America not to be of significant value to them. And you've even heard President Trump's comments in the past that, Latin America is full of asshole countries. But now all of a sudden there's interest in going into Venezuela, you know. I'll say colonization, Now, I can't necessarily, I couldn't put that in the title, and say it's about the oil, but um, I do believe that Trump obviously has caught what he believes and who he believes is heavily responsible, for the heavy drug trafficking into the United States, and which I do believe that's part of it. But I think you know the deal, guys. A president never does anything like this on his own. So there are other parties that are involved in it, you know, and they have each party has their own individual interests. This particular conflict of what we're doing with Venezuela, obviously, there's more than meets the eye. People at the top are going to get paid off of this. You know, now, here's my add-in. Here's what I believe. What I'm saying is partially is going to happen. I believe they're going to work something out to install a new regime in there, obviously with Maduro out, a new regime that would be agreeable, and would align with the United States and its policies. Then also probably some type of deal where they can get hold of Venezuela like another oil reserve. So um, possibly you may see gas prices really go down and get much cheaper, if we are able to get oil from Venezuela. I'm just sharing, just inputting some of my thoughts on it. Okay. Now, let's see. CBS News. Okay, US strikes Venezuela and captures Maduro. Trump says we're going to run the country for now. And what did I say? I said colonization. So if the US has removed head leadership from that country, remove his president, and then all of a sudden we take over, that's kind of basically like we're annexing it. What I'm saying? Or we are colonizing it. And so until they get ready to install whom they want in there. And so it's kind of like I wouldn't want to say nothing like this, but it's kind of like a puppet regime. But I personally believe that the president does believe in um what he went after Maduro for, but what I'm saying, I think it's more to it. I think um others that are behind him, they want that oil. They want to colonize Venezuela and use it as a resource. That's just my take on it. Okay, and I'm just trying to confirm it. Okay, Reuters. Trump says Venezuela Maduro captured after strikes. Okay, Washington, coming straight from Washington, guys. United States attacked Venezuela and captured its long-serving president Nicolás Maduro on Saturday. So, you getting it straight from the horse's mouth. So I'm just not running my mouth. You know, and let's see, France 24. Reports of transport to the U.S. and legal charges. All right, live on this was live with France 24. Venezuelan President Maduro arrives in New York following U.S. capture. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has arrived in New York following his capture by U.S. forces in an overnight military operation, according to U.S. media. So those are three outlets. But that's my take behind the scenes. What I'm saying, it's about oil. So like I said, I do believe, that we will see oil prices go down. Something had to give and something had to happen. And this right here is about the American economy. And I'll say it again. This right here is about the American economy. Now let's get into the overview of what Reuters and what other outlets are reporting. All right. Obviously, we already know, that President Maduro was captured after strikes. The United States attacked Venezuela and captured his long-serving president, Nicolas Maduro. And his wife. You know, early this morning. So obviously, probably special forces went in there, and got him under a covert, ops. Okay. Now, um, now, obviously, you can see from the news outlets on TV that many of the Venezuelan people, they took to the streets and was celebrating. As I guess there were probably quite a few that felt that President Maduro, his particular leadership and rule was oppressive to them, and so they feel liberated. What I'm saying, and are, I guess, perceiving President Trump as a hero. And so Trump made a claim, about running Venezuela, temporarily. You know what I'm saying? So I guess what he's trying to say is that basically the politically correct way of saying it would be, okay, we're going to run Venezuela until the country is in a safe state. You know what I'm saying? Um, Everything is proper and it has a judicious transition. Basically, um, in plain English, until we install, leadership that we deem um, is suitable to the United States leanings. So I just, that's basically what they're saying. So you can just say a puppet regime if that's what you want to say. A puppet regime. The Guardian says Albanese called for peaceful, democratic transition of power in Venezuela after U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro. Following the U.S. military's forcible capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, who were transported to New York to face drug and weapons trafficking charges, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called for a peaceful, democratic transition in Venezuela while emphasizing respect for international law. The Australian government, which has no embassy in Venezuela, reiterated its advice against travel to the region due to instability and security risks. The Venezuelan Association of Australia expressed solidarity with Venezuelans globally, hoping for a free and democratic future. Reactions to the U.S. Reactions to the U.S. action were mixed globally. While Australia's opposition leader welcomed Maduro's removal, the Greens criticized the U.S. intervention as unlawful. U.S. President Donald Trump stated that the U.S. would manage Venezuela and seize its oil reserves, contradicting claims by Maduro's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, who maintains Maduro is still president. Russia, Cuba, and Iran condemned the raid as an attack on sovereignty, while Argentina supported it. Mexico opposed it, and Brazil expressed concern. Global leaders, including those from the UK, France, and Canada, expressed relief over the end of Maduro's rule, given his history of authoritarian governance and repression. So, there you have it, guys, from the Guardian. Now, like I said, I already said it before I even read that portion of the article to you. That oil reserves, So I would gather in the United States we should see prices start to go down. For gas and stuff like that. So this is about the U.S. economy, and also I believe it's also global. There's going to be other players that are going to benefit from this. U.S. and its allies, and then the United States is. I believe they also moved in fast on Venezuela like this because they're trying to keep up with the BRICS. You know, China beat China, Russia, India, Brazil. Those guys, they're trying to beat them. What I'm saying, to the punch. And remain as the world leader. Now me personally, I believe that you definitely got two major players. It's China, you know, and the United States. What I'm saying, and also Russia is there. But definitely, I believe right now I would still say that I think that China might have edged the United States out, what I'm saying, as number one in the world superpower. But obviously, it's still close, what I'm saying? It's still close rivals, what I'm saying? But the United States, I guess they ain't going down without a fight. They ain't going down. The West is not going down without a fight, man. But this is about economics, power and resources, man. That's basically what this boils down to. Now, globally, what are going to be the effects, the domino effect? That I'm not exactly sure of yet, but I have an idea that obviously in the West, they're already aligned. So I believe through the United States, the West will benefit. I'll just put it to you that way. Just like China has its side with the BRICS, the United States has, its side as the leader, of the Western Hemisphere. So it's going to be interesting, guys. You know what I'm saying? Now, um, everybody feels different, you know, about Trump and the United States going in and doing this. Even here in America, you got mixed reactions. A lot of people, some people, they don't like it. You know what I'm saying? and some do. But let me read. Okay, support from some governments. Okay, here's what the Guardian says. Albanese calls for peaceful democratic transition of power in Venezuela after U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro, following the U.S. military's forcible capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, who were transported to New York to face drug and weapons trafficking charges. Australian Prime Minister Albany, Anthony Albanese called for peaceful democratic transition, okay, in Venezuela by emphasizing respect for international law. I think I read this one already. Yeah, you know. Um, Obviously the Argentinians supported, and I believe Argentina supported it because Argentina aligns with the West, and definitely with the United States, Australia, Britain, and also Argentina sees it as a potential benefit to Latin America and definitely to their country. You know, if the United States basically colonizes Venezuela, then they get the benefit of U.S. Protections. They get the benefit, of the wealth of the United States. And so what that does, that has a trickle effect throughout Latin America, and especially for a country like Argentina, which is one of Venezuela's next door neighbors. So I would think that's why they definitely are excited about it, because that opens up economic opportunities for them. Now, um, here's what is now going to happen, because the United States has gone into Venezuela. Now you're going to get they're going to put military bases there. So I expect with Trump, I would not be surprised if by the end of 2026 they finally come out and tell us that we're building bases, in Venezuela. So which in turn, when you bring military personnel in and you build bases in a foreign nation, what happens? You help to add or stimulate the economy. You're gonna need everything. When you got set up a military base, you gotta rent the land, from the host country. Then, so that's money for them. You know what I'm saying? That's real estate. Then you have to build housing, dormitories. What do you got to build up? You got to have what is it? Temporary lodging facilities. You know what I'm saying? You got to have everything that a base is going to need. You know what I'm saying? You're going to need you're going to need supplies. You know what I'm saying? The logistics of it. You're going to need cooks. So you have to have food. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the shelter. So the logistics alone, you get private and government contractors in there to start building up um, their country. And then you also have to look at it with the United States coming in there, annexing it or colonizing it. Now, what happens is, are they going to use partially the U.S. dollar, or are they going to create, and will the U.S. Treasury now take over Venezuela's currency and remove President Maduro, so whoever's on the face of their currency, like they did with Saddam Hussein, and then reprint, new Venezuelans currency backed by the United States. So I foresee there's something, like that in the works. That is something that I foresee happening. So it would be understandable, why their next door neighbor, Argentina, would definitely welcome the United States, pushing Maduro out of power and taking it over, because that's going to benefit them. And it will benefit Latin America as a whole. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of different trading partners that are involved in this. So if Venezuela gets strong, then they get to do trade, which they already are, saying throughout Latin America, and also with other governments and foreign nations. Obviously now, with the United States annexing it, I'm quite sure the U.S. is already have some type of trade agreements, and also certain agreements in place to kind of make sure that Venezuela in the future will not trade with certain nations. You know, I would not be surprised if they try to maybe get Venezuela to sign or buy in to maybe not making trades with say maybe Iran, and certain countries that may be considered potential enemies of the United States. So this is, I'm just this is what how I'm looking at it from just this angle, and there's more than that. I'm saying that's going on. But by taking out President Maduro, you got a lot of administrative, I'm saying, actions that are going to have to happen. But anyway, guys, I'm trying not to drag this on too long, but I'm just giving my take on it. But there's a lot of mixed reactions about this. They kind of some of them feel that the United States went in like the maybe the big bully, picking on a weaker nation. You know, um, I mean, I don't really know. I really never followed Venezuela, that much. I heard about President Maduro, but I really didn't follow him, too much. And it's no big secret. We knew that drugs and weapons, were being run across the borders in the United States. We already knew that. So I'm not surprised about that, But um, I I don't know. I don't particularly have a problem with what you know President Trump of the United States, what they did in removing him, but my hope is that in the future, now that they've taken over, I really hope that they see to it that the Venezuelan government gets properly stood up and make sure that their country's economy, is back stable and that it grows, and make sure the Venezuelan people get their due. I would not want to see um, one dictator removed, and then you have another leader coming in, what I'm saying, and doing them dirty just in a different way. I really hope if the United States you go in and you're gonna take over this or colonize this country, make sure that its citizens and its government, make sure you take care of the people, and they need a stable government. What I'm saying? So I hope that the US does the right thing, you know take care of the people and take care of their government, get them squared away, because it's too late now. They don't jump in and assume responsibility, and the United States is not doing this for nothing. There's always a trade-off. So the United States will get, what they want, and hopefully in exchange they'll give Venezuela, a fair deal. But we know the United States wants those resources, and they got to keep their eye on those resources. So Venezuela, what I'm saying, they get the benefit of US protections, what I'm saying, strengthening, what I'm saying, by the US economy. So both countries will benefit, but I just hope that it makes it down to the everyday citizen in Venezuela. I hope it don't stop, at the top, with the government and with the rich folks, and then that the working class and the rest of the citizens, they don't get anything. I really hope that they do the right thing and make sure, that it's a trickle down effect, and that everybody gets the benefit. You know, let's see here. Um, let's see. Legal and ethical dimensions. Okay, now obviously there's questions about international law and sovereignty. And obviously the UN is going to issue out, what I'm saying, their response to it. But many nations and people, have their different opinions. Did the United States break international law? By doing something like this. You know. Did they break international? This question about international law and the sovereignty. Okay. Now here's what the Reuters report says. Okay. Um, let's see. Reuters. Was the U.S. capture of Venezuela's president legal? Okay. On January 3rd, 2026, U.S. forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife during a military operation following months of pressure by the Trump administration. Maduro was transported to the U.S. to face charges including terrorism, drugs, and weapons related crimes. The administration claimed legal justification through U.S. indictments and national interests, arguing the operation was part of law enforcement. However, legal experts criticized this rationale, noting contradictions between claims of an arrest mission and intention to control Venezuela politically. Yeah, no doubt. Critics also stress that drug trafficking and gang related charges do not qualify as justification for military force under international law, which requires criteria such as self defense or UN authorization. Javier Paul, a constitutional law expert, described the dual reasoning as legally incoherent. Furthermore, the U.S. did not secure congressional authorization or local consent, which are typically required for military interventions. Precedents like the 1989 arrest of Panama's leader Noriega involved clearer legal frameworks, including recognized opposition, governments, and U.S. citizen protection. Despite possible legal violations, experts doubt the U.S. will face consequences due to limited enforcement mechanisms in international law. Now, let me say this. Um, Here's my perspective on it, and in my opinion. Um, I personally felt that I think that Trump did the right thing. In this particular case, I think he did the right thing. And um, and this is no offense to anybody that sided with President Maduro, but this is just my opinion. And in the United States, we are allowed free speech. It is one of our amendments in the Constitution. But you had an oppressive dictator, and then on top of it, with our government, a lot of leaders, they want to play around, and you put the bounty on his head, but you wasn't going to do nothing. And I hate to say this, but um, could it be possible that maybe um, some individuals, maybe some of the elites, and maybe some of the politicians, they was getting paid off of Maduro being in leadership? Because you have to understand drugs, weapons, and traffic, stuff like that, it can't happen unless somebody, high up in power allows it to come in. The average person, doesn't have that type of power or authority to allow it in. So therefore, that means that somebody high up, or probably several many people was getting paid, off of Maduro being in power and off of Venezuela's activities. And so, why would they do anything? Yeah, they may do some press conferences and, yeah, you put a bounty up, what I'm saying? But they probably never figured that anybody would act on it. So they can just make it look good on paper while they steadily getting paid. And they know what the United States ain't stupid. They know what's going on in these governments and in these countries. They know, trust me. And why would I say that? When um I was in the military, I had a special duty assignment, you know, and um, I saw the different graphics of maps, you know, that the United States has worldwide. You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about, and other governments have them too, especially if they're major players. You know what I'm saying? So that includes China, Russia. You know what I'm saying? Other governments, yeah, they got them too. You know what I'm saying? But I saw everything from the aeronautical charts, hydro charts, um, the land and evacuation charts. You know what I'm saying? City graphics. You know what I'm saying? And the AWACS plane. I know how they take the pictures from 30,000 feet up. And like X-ray vision, better than Superman. You know what I'm saying? Could see um, through any facility what pair of panties or socks you're wearing. That's how sophisticated the technology is. You know what I'm saying? But I saw it, you know what I'm saying, firsthand, myself. I saw it. You know what I'm saying? And so with the US having that type of technology and that type of intel, you can't tell me they don't know what's going on in these countries. Why would you need to have maps and that type of intel, on other nations unless you don't already know what's going on inside of it? So you have those maps and that type of intel on them, just in case you need to make certain moves or maneuvers. And um, those maps, what I'm saying, are part of what would be used, by U.S. military forces. Um, obviously, special forces, fighter pilots, CIA. FBI, all you different NS government agencies, you know what I'm saying, intelligence agencies, um, that need, you know what I'm saying, to operate. I'm just laying keeping it real, guys. You know what I'm saying? I saw classified maps, you know what I'm saying? And that is why, um if you ever find a map, you know what I'm saying, just laying around on the street, if you read the back of it, you know what I'm saying, it'll tell you where you're supposed to turn it into. You're supposed to immediately take, if it's regular or classified or top secret, you're supposed to take that. You can't take that map and throw it in the garbage. You take that map, you throw it in the garbage, or you just hold on to it and you get caught. That's automatically 5 years imprisonment and or $10,000 fine. You're supposed to take that map and turn it in to any law enforcement agency or into any military base, and then they'll take the map back, and then they'll properly dispose of it. But that's how crucial that type of intel is. So um, obviously before they do operations like these, and most with now Trump, it might be a little bit faster, but normally the U.S. is normally probably about, maybe I would say 4 to 5 years at least, 4 to 5 ahead before they plan on going in to a country, or before they plan on escalating and getting to any conflict or a war. Normally, it's like 4 years, 4 to maybe 4 to 6 years out. With all the planning and stuff like that, strategically going on behind the scenes, and these maps are a part of it. You know what I'm saying? So, um, um, don't be fooled. You know what I'm saying? The politicians, they know the deal. And the elites, they know what's going on in these countries, and those whose pockets are getting fat. But they failed to act. So Trump went on in, and he took care of business, you know what I'm saying? And, stop playing around, you know what I'm saying, with this guy, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know what's going on. Let's get this done and get it over with. And now they beefing and squawking because he probably messed up their little gravy train. Probably their little side hustle or income stream. I'm just laying it out, keeping it real, guys. You know what I'm saying? Now, what does this mean next? Okay. Political vacuum in Venezuela. Um, let's see. Regional stability, oil market implications. You know what I'm saying? Let's say it again for the slow folks in the back. Oil market implications. Like I said, I expect that the United States prices should go down. You know what I'm saying? With the United States going in, annexing and colonizing Venezuela, and now um, getting his hands on Venezuela's oil, getting his hands on its resources. So I expect it should go down in the United States. And um, I mean, I don't want to sound cruel, but um, I believe that the U.S. economy and the Venezuelan economy will both benefit. You know what I'm saying, from this. You know, um, jobs will be created for both. You know, as you stabilize, you know what I'm saying, the economy, and obviously make it more democratic, and have it align with the United States, you know what I'm saying, policies, and align with the West. So I expect to see a trickle down effect in both economies. You know, I'm gonna wrap this up right here as I've gone on. Bit long with it, but that's just my thoughts, guys. And you know what I see. You know, that's just what I see, and the real reason, behind it. Now, with the United States doing this, does it help to try to secure their place in the West? Up on the main stage. I don't think that that they're gonna be able to beat out China and the BRICS. I think that train is already rolling, and China is ahead, with the technology. And I think it's too late. You know what I'm saying? The United States is trying to make a desperate grab and a gasp by doing this. Is it going to help some? Yeah, it'll help some. But China and the BRICS, that train is rolling, and it's not stopping. You know what I'm saying? So I would still say China is number one. The U.S., you know what I'm saying, is number two. You know what I'm saying? And Russia. I would say is probably number three. You know, that's just my take on it. You know what I'm saying? The power dynamics have shifted and have changed, and the United States and the West is losing their grip. You know what I'm saying? And it's too late. You know, with technology, you're not gonna stop the bricks from rolling. You ain't gonna stop Africa. You know, this train is moving. You know, and then part of Latin America is part of the BRICS. You know, what about Brazil? You know, so um, it's too late in the game. You know, if they wanted to remain number one, um, United States and the West, you know, they should have moved. You know, made their move on Latin America, and definitely should have serviced Africa. Should have developed it a long time ago, and they would be much further ahead. You know, but anyway, guys, you know, what do you think? You know, is the biggest consequence of an operation like this? You know, what say you? What are your thoughts? You know, and I'm gonna leave it, at that, guys. I'll leave it at that, and um, think about it. You know, but please, share your thoughts and your comments. You know, leave it in the section. If you're on YouTube, comment there. If you're on Rumble, leave your thoughts in the comment section there. Like to unlike the video or the live, you know, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble. You know, for those on YouTube, hit the hype button, you know, and if you decide that you want to become a subscriber, um, smash the bell, you know, become a subscriber and turn on all notifications, guys. Turn on all notifications, you know, and share Eric Broadus YouTube on my snacks 123. Subscribe, join me over here. You know, like, unlike button. Um, Either way, leave a comment. You know, I'd love to dialogue with you and hear your perspective, YouTube and Rumble. You know, everybody has a different way of thinking, a different perspective, and everybody has a right to be heard. What say you guys? And I thank you again to all my followers on Rumble. Thank you to all those on YouTube and on Snacks Thoughts. You know, so please, guys, share it, push it out. Snacks 123 SNAKZ 123 on Rumble. Eric Broadus YouTube ERICBROADUS. YouTube or EricBroadusYouTube.com. And my podcast, Snacks Thoughts, SNAKZTHOUGHTS, on Spotify, Spreaker. You know, subscribe and join me over there. You know what I'm saying? But either way, share all of these platforms. And lastly, I have my five best weight loss products. They are nutrition and weight loss products. And next to God, the next best thing you have is your health, guys. So take care of it. You get one body, you get one life to live. Take care of it. Your health is your wealth. All right, guys. Peace out. Catch you on the next one. Later.